As I talked about last time, Bitcoin was losing the 10-period moving average. Momentum turned up here at the support zone, and let me thin that out a little bit here. The support zone, these lows over here, we bounced at that 69,000, 59,000 area. Momentum turned up briefly, but then we got rejection at the 20 period just below our 50 period, which is flattened out and now curling over. So I told you again, we lose a 10 period moving average, we're going back to test the lows and probably the 100 period moving average, and maybe even a little bit lower to the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame. So again, losing the 10 is now bearish. Rejection off of the 50 and the 20 period just below the 50 there is bearish, but Bitcoin is likely going to move down here and try to find a bottom, maybe around the 100 period or just below it at the 20-week moving average there in the weekly time frame. So again, you have a bearish arrangement of the moving averages. The 10 is below the 20, both are below the 50, but you're forming a bull flag. So again, I think you're probably going to try to find a bottom around here. I think you're going to get another push down. The stock market will follow, but then I think the stock market will form a bottom, and we could bottom surrounding the Fed this week. Now, still see a drop down into the 57, 58,000 level down to the 100 period here or the 20-week moving average. The 100 period has risen up to the 59,000 area where we previously found support again, but we could take it out and move down again to the 57, 58,000 area or so. Our 20-week moving average is coming in there in the weekly time frame. Again, Bitcoin has had 3 failed attempts to clear 69,000. That's this dotted red line right here. Failed, failed, and failed. Now taking us back down towards the lower boundary of the channel, the flag pattern, and potentially a test of our 100 period or 20-week, almost equivalent to the 100 period in the conversion into the weekly time frame. But it's just there's just slight differences, and the 20-week is just a little bit lower. Very close. Again, we'll continue to watch the support zone here and the 100 period moving average and the lower boundary of the channel here. And again, maybe we plow on through this level, but then get a bottoming tail, and end up closing back above it. Here we push higher, got a topping tail, and I've drawn the trend line from that peak there, excluding the topping tail. Here I've excluded the bottoming tail back over here. So here I've included them, and it makes for a rather nice looking channel. So again, this is where I think we're likely headed, but we've lost 2 important moving averages this week. We lost the 10 period moving average, okay? Trading this week, we lost the 10, and we lost the 10 week moving average. You lost a 10 day and you lost a 10 week. We had to stay above both of those levels in order to rally. We're now failing above those 10 period moving averages in the daily and the weekly time frame. So again, I still think it's possible that Bitcoin moves to a new high. If we drop down here, we could find a bottom and see the bull flag play out, go up, and still form a higher high in either a legitimate breakout above 69,000, staying above it, not dropping back below it, or forming and completing a topping process, one or the other. Again, signals that suggest that a topping process is likely under construction. The bearish scenario would be that we drop below the 100 period and don't bounce off of it, but we lose this level, stay below. You could drop below it, but you got to get back above it for a bullish scenario. You drop below it and you stay below it and you can't get back above it, then that's going to be very bearish. 100 period is important because Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. The 100 period really gives us the trend. The 50 really gives us the momentum, and we've lost the 50, so the momentum has been lost here, and we're struggling at it. We broke it, and we've now back tested it and got rejection there, so the momentum is down. You got to get back above that 50, and if we lose the 100, then you will change the trend. So a bearish event this week in losing the 10 period moving average, that's that little red line right there, and then closing down, losing the 10 week moving average, that's this little red line right here. And let me just zoom in. Bitcoin just closed, had the Sunday close a couple hours ago, and for the week, Bitcoin Bitcoin lost 2.82%, so down nearly 3%. Previously we had dropped, but we recovered, dropped below that 10-week moving average. Bring it up closer so you can see it. We lost that 10-week moving average and the prior week as well, but we recovered with a bottoming tail and we rebounded back up. The buyers are down here. The sellers are up here, as I've said. The sellers have been up here. The buyers have been down here. And now the sellers are prevailing in that we're closing below the 10-week moving average. We were not able to do that the prior week or the week before that. So again, this is bearish if we stay below the 10-week moving average. Now, we dropped below the 10-week moving average over here, and that 100 period moving average at that time, and that's where we bounced. So again, we'll be watching the 100 period. Below the 100 period is the 20-week. Now here we hit the 100 period in the daily, but we didn't quite reach the 20-week. We may see the same thing happen here if we try to bounce off that 100-day moving average. Bitcoin follows the 100-day moving average. It does. Now, again, that 100-day moving average is right at horizontal support. We might break it and go a little bit lower, but right here, we're at the, actually, I said the 58,000 area. It's actually not 57, it is 56. So I stand corrected. Pardon me, I thought it was at the 57,000 area. It is at just below 56,000 right now here on the 20-week moving average. So that is going to be real important support if we lose that. Now the bullish scenario is that we are going to eventually build momentum with the bull flag, break above 69,000, never look back again, and get a legitimate breakout above this peak over here at 69,000. The bearish scenario is that we either break down, lose that 100 period in the daily time frame, and continue to drop and lose the 20 here, like we did over here, and again hold below the 10. We dropped below the 10 over here, we lost it, we stayed below it, ended up dropping 52% before all was said and done from the highs, losing the 20 weeks. So again, if we get a bigger sell-off, we sell off, say, with the Fed and get a big sell-off, we start losing these levels, then again, the top could be in with a lower high, lower low scenario if we remain below that 10-week moving average. You got to get back above this 10 now. Okay, you got to get back above the 10 if you're going to get a rebound with the bull flag pattern. So again, that 100 period, if you lose the 100, you lose the 20-week, that's really bearish. If you can bounce off these levels and get back above the 10, that's bullish. If you can get back above 69, hold above it, never drop back below it again, you got your bull market. You go up here and it fails, and you get something like this where we drop and we pop and that's it, and you drop and you pop and that's it, then again you can get this drop and pop and that could be it. We have a larger topping process on our hands. Talked about an expanded flat where you move above this high, just above this high, and then you come back and you take out the low down here before you bottom, and that's this massive expanded flat correction. So again, that is very possible if the bearish scenario plays out here. There are signals and things that are suggesting that, like the recent breakout of the dollar. Talked about some other signals that I'm watching that are suggesting that we could witness a top here. And if we do, is it a lower high, lower low, where we start losing the 100 in the 20-week, the 100 in the daily, to get one more push higher. So again, watching the 69,000 level, it's really the line in the sand. But if the bull flag plays out, we can see Bitcoin go up one more time. And if we do, the S&P 500 move back to fill the gap at 5,200, which I've been talking about. I talked about the S&P in my last update. Lost the 10-day moving average, and here in the weekly time frame, we've lost the 10-week moving average. And again, we'll see if we try to bounce off of it surrounding here, or if we hold below it, you can get a bigger drop like we did here and here before getting back above it, trying to rebound, or stay below it, then again, that's going to be very, very bearish. Here we tried to recover, went to the 20, got rejection, and we'll drop back below the 10. And again, a bigger drop, 63% the second time. Tried it again, couldn't get above that 20. Again, got rejection, and again, eventually moved to a new low after that as well. So again, losing the 10-week moving average, losing the 10-day moving average, This is bearish until we get back above those levels. Like I said, you've got a shot at a bull flag pattern if we can bounce surrounding the 100-day moving average, or if we lose it, you could try to move towards the 20-week moving average here, weekly time frame. As I've said, this is important that we break above this level if you're to continue to rally. You got to be able to break above it and stay above it, and we've had 3 failed attempts. Again, as I've talked about, every time we've had a bear market or major correction, we've broken up to a new high and it's been off to the races. Broke up to a new high, off to the races. Broke up to a new high, off to the races. Broke up to a new high, off to the races. And even right there, we got right here, and we broke to a new high and it failed, and we dropped 78%. So is that move down? If the bear market's over, that's the weakest bear market in Bitcoin's history. Markets have been 80-90%. There have been 3 of them: 83, 86, and 84%. It was only 78%. So again, if we something like what we had over here, where we have a failed breakout where we tried to get above this high after dropping 55%, but the thing failed, and we ended up dropping 78%. So again, watching this closely, again, the bullish scenario is you get above this level and you never look back. And we haven't so far been able to do that. When I talked about the 20 period being at the 57,000 level, I was thinking of critical mass earlier when I talked about it. The 20s at 56,000. Critical mass is at 57,000. So there's a confluence of support there. And then you have the rainbow cloud here at 60,000. And again, this 59, 60,000 area. And we bounced off of that level previously. I told you if that breaks, it's going to be bearish. But then you have critical mass right there, right at 57,000. So again, can we bounce? We bounced off of it previously right there. Okay, and we broke it over here, broke the rainbow cloud, but bounced off critical mass. So again, I'll be watching these levels closely. You start losing the rainbow cloud, you start losing critical mass, then that's going to be bearish. And then you have the risk of having this happen, where you get this 52% drop. If you can bounce off these levels, and that's going to be bullish, and you got your bull flag where you can bounce off these levels. And again, below critical mass and the rainbow cloud is the 20-week moving average, as I mentioned previously. But again, if these levels hold and the balance of power remains positive, then again, the bulls remain in power. We start losing these levels. You start losing the 100-day and the 20-week moving average as well. Moving below these levels here, then again, would be very, very bearish. You could drop below the 100 period, but you better bounce back up and get back above it. If you hold below it, it's bearish. Bounce off of it, it's bullish, and that's really what it comes down to. So I think we're going to drop, and I think we're going to try to bounce again. The markets try to bottom surrounding the Fed. Shortly thereafter, the S&P could rebound back up to the 5,200 level, or even try to make a new high at the upper channel. I talked about my last update, but just some things to be watching here in the weekly time frame: the rainbow cloud, critical mass, that 100-day in the daily time frame, and the 20-week moving average, and the fact that we're below now the 10-week moving average and the 10-day moving average in the daily time frame. So important moving averages, along with the rainbow cloud and critical mass right here. Again, with the 4-hour chart, Bitcoin's likely going to try to hit the lower boundary of the channel. And again, possibly forming diversions with parameter. We got rejection at the 200. We dropped back below the 50. We dropped back below 10 in the daily and lost to 50 here. All the while, parameter is negative, all suggesting a bigger drop back down, likely to take out the low at 59,000. You can bottom surrounding some of the support levels I'm talking about in this video, just underneath this level, or just under that 100 period moving average, maybe just above our 20-week, possibly surrounding critical mass or so. Have a bull flag and signals momentum has shifted back to bearish. Again, likely going to test these lows, and if we do, you can form a divergence with the parameter. Bitcoin is right at, in the daily time frame, right at this trend line. If we connect the low here and the low we recently made, and that's a trend line right there, you take it out, you get your 100 period. But if we take out the 100 period, this is the trend line I'm watching right here. This trend line right here could be tested, and we could bounce off of it if we violate the 100 period. And again, we took out the 100 period previously, and that was the last touch of this blue trend line right here. We took it out and then got a bottoming tail there. That's where we expected to bounce around the 100 period moving average because Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. So I'll be watching. If we get a bigger drop here, do we see the RSI come down here and reach an extreme, or does it maybe try to form a divergence or whatever? But we'll be watching to see, do we find support at the 100 period, or again, down at this trend line, which is right where the 20 week moving average is coming in, right around the 56,000 area. A triangle breakdown, again, we have a lower high, lower low. If we lose the trend line, we lose the 100 period, we lose the 20 week, then that's bearish. Then you've got support way back over here, down towards our 200 period moving average, down towards 51,000. Horizontal support is at 51,000. So if we lose the trend line, we lose the 100, that's where we're going. If we bounce off these levels, you can bottom out, you can form your bull flag, and you can try to rebound back up. And moving, if we drop below the 100 period or bounce off of it, drop below it, get back above it, or drop or bounce off of it, that would be bullish. Breaking it and staying below it, breaking the trend line and staying below it, that would be bearish. And the MACD remains negative. So again, we're going to be watching to see if we break down and move to test the low, the recent minor low at 59,000, and to test our 100 period and the trend line. I previously mentioned Bitcoin could form the bull flag, finish forming it, get one more push higher, and still top. You'd see the same thing with the stock market. This is Bitcoin up here. This is Tether right here. Tether at this curve has marked the Bitcoin tops, and we saw it over here, we saw it over here, we saw it over here and here. Let me do that better there. And the extremes to the upper of this curve have marked bottoms here, over here, over here, and then over here for the diversions. And recently, just below it over here. But again, we're likely headed here with Tether down to this level right here from the curve right here. And again, that could still push Bitcoin up to a new high, but still create a top, as I've talked about. If we look at Tether dominance, again, we got a trend line here, and we're bouncing off of it. And we've come up to overhead resistance, and now we're turning down off of that level. Okay, if Bitcoin tries to find a bottom down here in the lower window and turns back up, you know, if we turn down a little bit more and then turn back up, you get something like what we had over here, or something like what we had over here. Now, again, this is a line you saw earlier with the candlesticks in the weekly time frame, that we had a peak, a drop, and then a pop higher. And we could see the same thing here if the Tether dominance turns back to the trend line here, turns back to the curve for Tether that I just showed you a moment ago. They're suggesting that Bitcoin could be in a topping process. This is what the bull scenario needs, is a break of this trend line. We got to break that trend line, because this again has called, let me just bring this up a little bit more so you can see it here. This is called the tops for Bitcoin, this trend line right here, all of them. It's called them all here since 2017. Called the major sell-offs on Bitcoin, and again, 84%. Ended up being 71% in totality, 55%, 78%. It's called them all. Here, a little hard to see, but we had two down legs, and again, it called both of them correctly. So again, the sell-off we're getting now, we're bouncing off the trend line. If we move back to the trend line, Bitcoin could get another push higher. But if Bitcoin is going to have a bull market, that trend line has to break. So again, this is suggesting a topping process is under construction for Bitcoin. And if we get a bigger drop right here, right now, hold below the 10-week moving average, start taking up the 20-week, you start clearing this level right here with Bitcoin dominance directly overhead, then that's not going to be good for Bitcoin. You may get a topping tail like here and push back down, a topping tail like that and push back down, and get, you know, a bottom, as I mentioned, hitting the 20-week moving average or moving below the 100-day. But again, this level, you break above it, you stay above it, you hold above it, then that's going to be very bearish for Bitcoin. You push back down and you move to the trend line, then that will be bullish, and you'll try to find a bottom with the bull flag pattern. Again, this is suggesting that we still could see another leg higher if we don't push above horizontal resistance and stay above it, but maybe we push above it like we did over here and here, but then turn back down, then that would be suggesting we get one more high with Bitcoin. Watching this carefully, but it is just like the tether, it is suggesting that Bitcoin is in a topping process because Bitcoin takes its time doing what it's going to do. People may not realize that yet. Again, the bullish scenario, Bitcoin has to break above 69,000 and never look back. And then this trend line has to break. And then see everything turn back to bullish and remain that way and not drop below 69,000 again. But if we're in a topping process, we'll get rejection. Even if we go higher, we'll get rejection in this area, and any attempt above 69,000 will end up failing. That would be the bearish scenario. This is suggesting overall topping process is under construction for Bitcoin. I told you we could be around the highs, and we're turning down off of them, but we've been hovering near the highs for weeks and weeks. I told you that was very possible because that's what we've seen over here and over here. Over here, we are up near the highs for several weeks, and we could be witnessing the same thing. So again, for a bullish bull phase, you got to break the trend line. You got to break above 69,000. For a bearish phase, you break above it, and it fails, like over here. And I've been talking about these tops in 2021. Some breakout of the dollar, also suggesting that Bitcoin could have problems in the not too distant future. But the dollar's had a huge run. Bitcoin's had a huge sell-off. If the dollar pulls back, that can help Bitcoin move to a new high for the short term. But like I said, you take out that 20-week moving average, you take out the 100-day, that's going to be bearish. You bounce off those levels, that's going to be bullish. Now, the Bitcoin weekly chart, we still have the stochastic below 80. It's still pointing down. We had a divergence develop there, and we turned off of that peak, and so far that high is holding. Again, you've got your cloud in your 20-week directly below. You've got your 100 period above that in the daily time frame. Said the rainbow cloud and critical mass are very important support above the 20-week moving average there. But again, just some important things to be watching here. We continue to slide back to test our recent lows at 59,000. But stochastic still bearish here. Lost the 10-week moving average this past week. Coin got rejection at the 20-day moving average, just below the 50 period. Here's the 20 in blue. Again, the support is the 100 period. When you're below the 100 period, bad things are happening. You tried to get above it here and it failed. But you tend to get rejection at it or it fails. When you're above it, good things are happening, but you can overthrow it. Here we went sideways and got back above it and bounced off of it. We'll see if we bounce off of it again or break it. Break it, hold below it, that's bearish. You bounce off of it or dip below it and get back above it, that's bullish. If we rebound and try to make a new high with the bull flag, you could still form a divergence on parameter. You could still form a divergence on the RSI in the weekly time frame. The RSI reached an extreme. We turned down, we went back up a little bit there, and we really validated a lower high for now. And again, you might still try to form a divergence. It might still try to turn back up here and form a divergence, as we had back over here, as we had back over here, and we had the triple one right there, or the bullish one right here. Still might see that happen, come down, go back up, and still have the move fail, and again, looks something like what we had here or here if that divergence tries to form, but it still may mark a topping process if that is the case. You got to break above 69,000, stay above it, not look back. But right now, we still have a 2050 signal, 2050 bullish signal. We're above the 20, we're above 50 on the RSI. You start losing the 20, you start losing the 50, then again, bad things are going to start happening. You start losing the 20, you start losing the 50, bad stuff starts happening. So again, because major support in the weekly time frame, the 100-day in the daily, the RSI, we're still on a bullish 2050 bullish signal, But when you start dropping below these levels, you start losing the 50, then that's very problematic. I think you got a good shot that if we see the bull flag play out, you can bounce off these levels. And if you do, you got a possible divergence that can form here if you can see the stock market rebound and the S&P and NASDAQ go back up and try to fill their gaps up. Again, we'll probably have more volatility at the Fed. Bitcoin will likely do so as well. We just turned off the 20 and the 50. The S&P is at the 20 as of Friday. It's directly overhead. It's likely going to turn off those levels as well. That was at the 20 period as well on Friday. Probably see maybe a bigger push higher or turn right around those areas. They seem to be following Bitcoin again. So I'll be watching to see if a divergence develops here if we go a little bit lower and try to bounce.